Have you ever stopped and wondered just how secure your bike lock actually is? I certainly have. Ever since I got a much more expensive bike, I noticed people look at it a lot more. And up until now, I've been securing it with this. It's a bestseller budget option on Amazon. And of course, no bike lock is perfectly secure. If somebody really wants to take your bike with enough planning and using the proper tools, they could easily do so. And that's why where you choose to lock up your bike is just as important as the lock itself. For example, I would feel much safer using a weak lock in a low crime area than a beefy lock in a high crime area. But if you use your bike as a car replacement, there's going to be some situations where you need to lock up your bike in non-ideal locations. In these situations, there's still some mitigation you can do, like don't leave the bike unattended for too long. Also, the time of day is a crucial factor. And I wanted to know just how much protection these bestseller bike locks on Amazon are really providing you with. So I went ahead and ordered all three variants. They come in a 6, 8, and 10 millimeter thickness. And these days, the preferred method of attack is a battery-powered angle grinder. So that's what we'll be using in this experiment. Ta-da! Okay, this one right here is the 6 millimeter thickness. Super wimpy. The 8, you can immediately notice it is more heavy duty, more secure. The 10 millimeter, even the lock itself is way more significant. All right, now before cutting this, we're gonna cut the sleeving and try to identify any potential weak points. Okay, so after opening these up, the takeaway here is they all, including the 6 millimeter, have small tack welds. Could be better, but it is fully connected. And in terms of the weak point, I've identified that coming off of the lock, there is a single point of failure. Oddly enough, as you go down the side, so that's the 10 millimeter, the 8 still has that flaw, but the tolerances is a lot less. And then the 6 is actually the best in this regard.
Double redundancy, it looks like.
Yeah, this requires a double cut. And just side by side, the 6 to the 10, there's a big difference in that potential weak point. Now, before we cut this, let me tell you guys the ground rules. So, of course, safety first. Do not try this at home. We are using proper eye protection, gloves, even a helmet with the visor just to be extra safe. The tool is a brand new angle grinder. We have a new blade, and this blade is designed for metal. You can see right there, this is a metal cutting blade. I do have a spare blade, but I don't plan on rotating them. This is just a backup in case something stupid happens, because I want to keep this test as realistic as possible. And for that reason, we're not going to be putting the chain in a vice grip. We're going to have it in a more realistic scenario where it's more difficult to cut. So this is going to be a two-man operation. One thief is going to be using the angle grinder, and the other is going to be holding the chain still with a wrench. We're not going to change the blade or change the battery, and we're going to give ourselves 5 minutes to be able to accomplish this.
Ready to go steal ourselves a bike?
Steal it. Yep.
She's out.
Just about there.
No, yeah, that's out. Yeah.
Okay, that was not long at all. That was less than a minute. All right, this is the 8 millimeter. Again, we're going after the weak point. Hopefully just one cut. All right, protection on. Safety goggles. There you go. I'm good. Okay, also very quick, just the just the sleeve keeping it together at this point. I got the knife.
Yeah.
That's the 8mm. And finally the 10mm. We're changing locations. I didn't like the sparks hitting the wood, so this should be safer. Okay, less than 30 seconds.
I was gonna say that was probably the most disappointing out of all of them.
Yeah, that weak link
Really.
is killer.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, I wasn't putting any pressure on that.
So my key takeaway here is, surprisingly, the thickness had a very minimal impact on cutting time. The biggest factor by far that affected cut time was the design and that point of single cut failure. And that's why the thinnest 6mm version actually took the longest to cut. It didn't have that same weak point. So with this knowledge in mind, I'll go ahead and leave these locks linked below the video, but I also want to give you guys my, I guess, official recommendation and the lock that I currently trust with my $5,000 e-bike. So let me show you guys my new locking solution. I bought both these components, or there's actually 3 components here all working together, and I'll leave it all linked down below. The first component here is the OKG manganese steel chain. This steel is a much different alloy than the very cheap steel used in this bike lock. It feels very different. It also has a hex 6-sided design, and the thickness of the gauge here is 12mm, so even thicker than the thickest offered by the budget brand. And this alloy is supposed to really eat away at grinder blades. So in theory, this should require at least 1 change of blades, making it significantly more theft-proof. You're also going to notice that there's no weak point. This chain requires 2 cuts. This is a noose design, so one end fits through the other, giving you much more usable length in a smaller package. I also attached a motion alarm sensor to this chain, so if anybody tries to hold on to the chain or manipulate it in any way, this will sound, and it's very loud.
Alright. Congratulations, I'm deaf.
And then the final piece of the equation is a heavy-duty D-lock. This one in particular is brand Hip Lock. Again, I'll leave a link down below. It's about $95. The thickness here is 14mm, so a little bit thicker than the chain. I think that's needed because this is the easiest to brace and use a grinder on. So you certainly want this to be the most difficult piece to cut. And just like with the chain, this lock will also require 2 separate cuts because both ends lock into place. Now you guys might be wondering why not just use the U-lock and ditch the chain. It's because I often find myself in situations like this, where this pole is the only thing to lock my bike to, and the U-lock will not work. But with the noose chain, I could wrap this around the pole and then use the U-lock to connect it to my bike. But the way I prefer to use this lock, the most convenient way, is to leave the noose chain around my bike frame, put the D-lock around the object, and then just use this chain as an extender, a leash coming off the bike. Like so. And then for extra security, I arm it. And if you want some extra security, sometimes I do add this disc lock with built-in alarm. The built-in alarm isn't nearly as good as this alarm, but it's probably better to have it than to not have it. So that's my current locking solution. 12mm thick noose chain with manganese steel. This hip D-lock, that's 14mm in thickness. I have a motion alarm sensor attached to the chain itself. And then for a little bit of added security, I have a front disc brake lock. To my knowledge, there's no easy weak point here. To steal this bike, it requires at least 2 cuts via an angle grinder, and there's 2 alarms you have to deal with as well. Again, no security system is fully bulletproof, but I'm pretty happy with this solution. I'll leave this link down below along with the other chains we pretty easily defeated. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.